Well, good morning from New York. Hello to everybody. I was about to say it's a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure to be in New York, but it's a bigger pleasure to see how many people who's participating in this small webinar. Yeah, today I'm going to talk about individualization, about digitalization, and so forth. And we've decided to call this one "Amplify the Effect, Not the Annoyance." And I'll get a bit deeper into that. I can see there's quite a few people that that are new, or at least that I haven't met before, or that I recall that I've met before. So I just want to, I'm not going to go deep into anything about Agnitio, just want to give you a very short, brief list here of a few points where you can see, just to get an idea who we are. But basically, we are a company who are focusing on a vertical, on healthcare industry, you can say, on life science industry, to make technology to enable individualized communication. That's what we're doing, and we are only in that vertical, you can say. We started out actually in 2001. We said at that time that we didn't want to be perceived as coming from anywhere, meaning that we said we don't want to be from England or Finland or Ireland. We want to be from farmerland, and wherever farmer is, that's where we're going to be. So this is just a list, so you can see some stats, so you get an idea of who you're talking to, or who, on the contrary, is actually talking to you today. Okay, basically, I'm just going to start out setting the scene. And the scene I'm setting today is just saying that I think it's very clear for all of us that the pharmaceutical industry is moving rapidly. It's moving fast from being a feature-oriented industry to become much more of an outcome-oriented industry. And by that I mean that the industry, most of the pharma industry actually come from the chemical industry, you can say, and we're mainly making, you can say, products and delivering products. What is happening now, I think, is very clear, which got a lot of things to do with both the competition, but especially maybe to do with government spending, is that nobody want to buy a pill anymore. They want to buy a solution, they want to buy a treatment, they want to buy an outcome. So I think it's very clear that what we'll see coming now, we see that happening in some countries faster than others, but it's an overall trend that we as pharma companies will not be paid by the pill in the future. We will be paid by the outcome of the treatment we're giving. And that means that when that happens, that we have to get a lot closer to the patient, and thereby also getting a lot closer to the healthcare professionals. Because you can say that if we're going to get paid not by the pill, but when the pill works, meaning that when we're going to have less hospitalization and so forth, then we will never be any stronger than the weakest link, you can say. So that means that we can have the best drug in the world, but if the doctor screen the patient wrongly, if we diagnose wrong, if we initiate, if it interacts with another drug, if we don't control it, if we don't titrate right, if we don't switch to a new product when that is necessary and so forth, then we're not going to get paid. Meaning that again, if it was in the old days, we could just go out and explain and tell the features and the benefit of our product. In the future, we're going to have to sit down with the individual doctor and say, where are your patients, what are your worries, and so forth, and then help him or her on that specific area of where he or she has a challenge. So this is just to set the scene, saying that this is, I think this is very clearly where everything is moving. But what it means when we talk communication marketing is that we're going to have to completely change the way that we've been communicating so far. Because as long as we were selling pills, we could exactly do what we've been doing, meaning that we could make the messages on the features and the benefit of our drugs, and then we could make campaigns, and then in first quarter we could talk about efficacy, second quarter we could talk about safety and so forth, because our job was not to actually, I'm exaggerating, but it was not to improve treatment, it was to prove that our drug would have an effect if it was used in the right way. What's happening now, when this is happening, I believe, is that the communication have to change. And I'm just trying to make a small ladder here to see what's going to happen with communication when we move from this feature-driven to the outcome-driven world. I think what we've done so far is a one-way message. If you look on the left-hand side, we've had a one-way message delivery where we've just been, you can say, pushing the features and the benefits of our product out to the to the different healthcare professionals. Now, where we're moving now, and I think quite a few companies are beginning to do, is to get more into two-way dialogue. Not just delivering, but actually start asking what is important for you, where are you, and so forth. But it's more, this one in the middle is more what I would call a menu-driven dialogue, meaning that you will ask the doctor or the customer, given some options on a menu. And where we will be hitting is much more towards a co-creation. Because when we get this broad that we actually have to figure out when to screen, how to diagnose, and so forth, nobody's going to be a top-notch specialist on that. Everybody's going to have to figure out together how to do this best. So that's going to be an interaction between the industry, the patient, and the doctor. And that's what I call co-creation. I think actually, just to give an example, I think there's a lot of co-creation going on around us right now as we speak. It's one of my examples is that when I look at the newspapers, meaning that today as most people I don't read paper newspapers anymore, but I read it online. And it just struck me the other day that actually when I read online, then one thing is that I read the article, but what I really read, and probably around 30% of what I read, is actually the comments to the articles. So that means that for my case, I have a feeling that only around 30 or 70% of the actual newspaper is written by the newspaper. The rest of it is actually co-created with the readers. So it's just to say that I think that we see it all around us, that there's co-creation getting in, that we're chipping in, because we all got knowledge in specific areas, and it's about putting that knowledge together to make the right decision. Okay, so just saying that when we go from this one-way delivery push information to a co-creation, actually opening up and figuring out what's important for the individual customer, it also what it means is that what we want to do and what we want to be able to do is to engage with the customer, no matter in what channel we are or how we do it. We need to figure out to profile the customer. Where are you? What are your worries? Is that about titrating? Is that about initiating? Figure out that, adapt it to the information that we can give, that we can help it to that situation, deliver it, learn from it, and then again we get into this good circle where we will keep on enhancing and give more and more value, make it more and more relevant for the individual customer. That we have to be able to do in a continuum, meaning that I think now I could see that quite a few of you also had some issues about multi-channel, of how to handle that. And I think the important thing here is that multi-channel is not about just taking all our content, all the messages we have now, and put it into more channels and then have it like libraries where people can go in. It's about having it in a continuum. I think that the big word here all the way through is to give more value to the customer, to give and that be done by making it more relevant, and the way to make it more relevant is to make it more individual. So when I talk about multi-channel, it's about making it relevant at any encounter, every encounter you have with the customer. So if you look at this picture, this is just to show that if we, for instance, if we start out engaging with a customer on a face-to-face meeting, we move him or her to step number 2 on an adaptation letter or whatever, then when he goes on to a microsite later on, or a smartphone, or whatever other channel he goes to, he will not start back at Adam and Eve at square one. He will actually start where we left him. So the communication will be a continuum, and depending on when and what's relevant for the for the individual customer. So basically what we're saying is that when everybody talks about going digital, everybody talks about multi-channel. I think both digital and multi-channel, we have to remember that those are just vehicles, they're just means. What we really want to do is that we want to go individual. We want to go value, relevant, individual. And in order to do so, yes, we need to go digital, and we need to go multi-channel. But multi-channel is about delivering the right content in the right context, meaning that it's not that I just want to say, now you can pick your information anywhere you want to. I want to give it in that situation where you need it, meaning that if I'm to dose, to help somebody to make better dosing, then depending on whether it's a doctor who's standing at the bed end with the patient, then he probably would like to have it either on a smartphone or a tablet. Whether if it's in a larger pharmacy in the hospital, he or she who do the dosing will probably sit in front of a computer, and I can deliver it in another channel. So multi-channel is about making it able to be a pull, but it's mainly about making it able to deliver it in the right context at the right time. So when we look at the technology, I think what's interesting is to say that I think whenever new technology comes out, we see that the first thing that we do with it is that we try to make what we used to do faster, you can say. So it's about optimization, it's about automation. That's mainly what we see. That when we saw the first accounting system coming out, it was literally just taking the paper that you used to do in accounting and put it into a computer. I think when we look at going from paper to digital or from paper to glass, when we see if everybody moved from paper detailing, we've done exactly the same. We just took the paper, but the same 3-4 campaigns we did a year, and we digitalized it and put it into a tablet or computer, but we didn't really change anything, you can say, in the way we were working. What we did was that we optimized, and that was great because we you can say that we kind of closed the loop. We got we got everything digitalized. We could save money on print, on distribution, and so forth. But it was an inside-out approach, you can say. It was something that would give benefit to the customer and very little benefit to the doctor. And I think that's where we are heading now. That's the next level. That's the beyond CLM. I use this analogy sometimes, saying that if you look at communication in the way that if you took like 200 years ago, you would say that everything was tailor-made and bespoken. So in the good old days, you can say before the industrialization, if you needed a pair of shoes, you would go to the shoemaker. If you needed a suit, you would go to the tailor. If you needed a drug, you would actually go to the pharmacist, and he would go behind the desk, and he would actually make the medicine for you on an individual level. So the great thing about that it was very, very individualized. It was fitted exactly to you and your need. The downside was, of course, that it was very expensive, and it took a very long time, meaning that the reach was very, very low. So you had high individualization, but very low reach. Then came exactly the industrialization, and with that came the total automation, you can say that. Suddenly now we could make millions of shoes, we could make close to the shelf, and so forth. And that had an enormous benefit because now it was reachable for everybody. Everybody could actually afford it. Most people could have a suit, most people could have, and so forth. So the reach was outstanding. That was the mass communication, say. The downside of this was obviously that it was a one-size-fits-all. That I could get a cheap pair of shoes, but I have to live with that. If I got one foot that's bigger than another, that I couldn't get two different shoes, one on the left and one on the right. I would have to live with either have one that's too big or one that's too small. The same with my suits. I'm a size 50 over my shoulders, but only my arm length is only a 48, European 48. So that everything was a trade-off. What we can do now is that actually we can get if we think it right, we can get the best of two worlds. We can get exactly the high individualization that will fit exactly to the individual customer, but with the price and the resources of industrialization, you can say, of commodity. And that's what's really intriguing about this, I think. So you can say that we sometimes say that the big task is now is moving from, you can say, mass communication or broadcasting to slim casting, to utilize the technology to make it available for everybody, but also to utilize it in a way where we can actually make it relevant and deliver exactly to the point, tailor-made to each and every one. So that's one analogy I use. Another one is saying that this is about individualization. Now, one thing is about individualization. The other thing is, as we talked about, is about multi-channel, which is about not only individualization when you come to me or I come to you, but no matter where you are. And that's about the pull side of this. So we need to have the technology to enable us to deliver exactly what you want to have, but also when you want to have it. And as I say here, it's that my brain is becoming too small. It's probably always been too small. But you're saying that for all of us, we're getting so much information from everywhere, especially for the pharmaceutical industry. But what it means is that no way can my brain hold that information that I'm given. And that means that the first thing I do is that I kind of extend my brain. If you could see where I'm sitting now, I've got my desktop computer, I've got my laptop computer, I've got my mobile phone, I've got my tablet, I've got all kind of external brains laying around me. And what I use it for is for my calendar, for my notes, for all kind of things, meaning that all the things I can't have in my brain, I put out to my external brain. So that actually means that, as I say, there's a lot of people I can't call anymore. I can't even call my mother if I don't have my mobile phone, because that's where I'm storing that phone number. It means that when my wife asks me to pick up the kids or buy something on my way home, I will ask her to send me a text because my brain is full. So you've got to put it on some of my external brains. So what that means, and this is what I'm talking about, this is the pull element, you can say, is that we have to make it available for people to pick up the information when they need the information. And what we've been doing in the old world, you can say, is that we've just been keep on pushing the same information, the same messages, whether it was interesting for me right now or not. But we were just kind of just hosing down our customers and hoping that one day what I was saying would actually resonate. But it would be a little bit like if they called me from the local cinema here where I live, and they called me every night and told me what they were playing tonight. And I would very soon say to them, you know what, when I feel like going to the movies, I'll look it up. I'll go on the website and I see what you're showing tonight, and then I'll make my decision. And that's exactly the same here, is that we've got to make it, but first of all, the most important thing is to make it relevant. Just putting it onto other channels doesn't make it relevant. So the first point is to say, make it relevant, figure out what's important for the individual, or help them to figure out what's important for them, and then be able to deliver it at the time, in the speed, in the context where they need it. So the way, one way to go, because we are honestly, the technology that we're working with and what we're doing is completely channel agnostic, and it's completely platform agnostic. It's about delivering digital digital content in whatever channel you want to deliver it in. But as I say, the most important thing in going in this direction, especially moving from what I call taking the beyond digitalization, you can say that now, as I said, now we've digitalized everything. We've moved from paper to glass, and I think a lot of companies are now saying, well, that's swell. Now I got it all digital. What's next? Now I've made the savings I could. I've reduced my time on my distribution cost and so forth. What's next? Well, what is next, in my view, is actually exactly to now take that information that we got, all the things that we've learned that we now has the digital to make it relevant and individual for the customer. So one way to go is that still we can say that most of the information that goes to the healthcare professionals from the pharmaceutical industry still comes through the sales reps. I think the number is, the last number I read is, depending of course the therapeutic areas and the kind of healthcare professional we are addressing, but the figures are around 60 to 80% of the information that the healthcare professional gets or need to make a decision, they actually state themselves that that comes from the sales reps. So 60 to 80% of our information actually goes through the sales rep. But again, just saying that we, software-wise, we're completely agnostic whether how you do that. But what we do like is the idea of making this land and expand, saying that, well, if you are in a situation where you do have sales reps out there, why not start using them? So instead of waiting for the world to go from push to pull, then you take the step and you turn your rep around from being a push sales rep to be a pull sales rep. And from there, figuring out what kind of content is to be delivered in what kind of channels. The way to do that, or one way to do that, this illustration is just to show that if you look on the left-hand side, where it says 2013, then the yellow part is to indicate that that is what's going through the sales reps of communication. If you look at the right-hand side where I say soon, it just shows that the amount of information that we're delivering is becoming more and more complex and is increasing. Just saying, so 7-8 years from now, we're going to deliver a lot more information. It's going to be much more complex information. But what it also shows is that it's going to be some other channels. Some of them we know now. Some of them is going to be microsite tablets and so forth. And some of them we don't know because they haven't been invented yet. I think one of the things that we can probably say is that on the left-hand side, we have mainly a push approach, where on the right-hand side, it's mainly going to be a pull approach, where it's going to be the customer picking up the information when they need it. So what I want to show with this one, and what we've had great success with doing, is to utilize the rep on the left-hand side and say, instead of using the rep as a pull, as a push agent, you can say, just going out every 3 months and repeat a message that will be or part of a new campaign every 4 times a year, whatever, then actually turn the rep around, utilize that the rep has a relationship with the doctor, that it's real persons, to figure out what is important for the individual customer, where is he or she on an adoption ladder, what is he or she worried about, and then not just doing that, but then actually utilize the technology to deliver exactly what it is that they're looking for and what they would like to have in that channel at that right time. So I'm going to give you some examples here in 2 seconds. An example here is just an anonymized example where we have the reps going out on tablets, where throughout the sales presentation, they will obviously capture some interesting, rich data about the customer, but in the very end, they will actually also say to the customer, well, if you tell me a little bit more about what are your worries, what would you like to know more about, what kind of patients do you have, whatever, without making it into an interrogation, but just as a service to say, I can give you much more information specifically made for you. So tell me, how much time do you have? When do you normally read this kind of articles? Would that be as you're commuting in the train, and so forth? And out of that, it will actually create a unique link and create a unique website, a microsite to that specific doctor. So that means actually the rep can sit in front of the doctor, can pull together, say what's important for you, and then it would automatically make a specialized, personalized, in this case, a magazine, an online magazine. So that means that when he clicks on that link, that the rep will send him either as a text or as email, he will actually go to a website that's made for him that will say, "Welcome, Dr. Peterson," and it will have this, the elements, the content, and the way of talking about it in a way that what he would like to have. From there, he could actually also say, "Well, I wanna have that article. I don't have time to read it now in my lunch break, but I would like to read it in the train on my way back home." So he can click on it again, and it will save it and put it to whatever device he would like to read it, and then he can read it in the train offline on his smartphone. Talking co-creation, what we're doing now, what we use technology to, is to actually move this much further out to empower the sales rep or the doctor himself to sit together with the customer and say, what are your worries? What are your problems? If one of your problems is that compliance, is that adherence, then let's make you a tool. And then we can actually, with the technology, sit together, make a tool for that specific healthcare professional who can then use it to hand it out to his patients, and suddenly we got a connection between us to our customer, to our customer's customer. Now, let me show you just a few examples of this. I'm just going to switch to my iPad. So it'll just be 1 second here, and I'll mirror my iPad. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a very quick presentations. The first one is just to give you this idea of how easily we can actually engage with the customer, how we can use, this could be a rep, it could also be the doctor himself, but ask them actually to rank what's important for them. So here I have on the top, I have a normal, you can say, way of showing my different topics about symptoms, efficacy, and so forth. But I can actually also ask the customer and say, well, let's spend this time to the maximum. Why don't you tell me what's the most important thing for you to talk about when treating this disease? You can put your finger on, and then you can rank what you think we should talk about, what would be the most important thing for you. And as I do that, and then you look at the top line, you will see the numbers up there that now it says as number 1 is to get rid of the symptoms fast. So if I turn that one around, you can see the numbers will change. So what I'm actually doing is that I'm now basically empowering the presenter, that be a rep, that be an online, that be the doctor, but I'm empowering the presenter to make a small analysis to say what's important for you, what are you worried about, and out of that it will actually make a small strategy, which are my numbers upstairs. So all I have to do now is just to follow that route, and then I'm actually tracking that. So in a very simple way, instead of just having my reps to push, I'm actually now having my reps to pull, but on an individual level, also capturing the specific information about that specific customer. Another thing I want to show you here is how we can capture very rich data. Again, it's an anonymized presentation. This was used for a pre-launch in various countries. This was in Ireland. The whole idea is just to say, how can we actually, again, empower the sales rep? And in this case, you can say what we basically want to do is to move the sales rep from being just a sales rep to become a marketing deputy, you can say. So you can say that what's happened here is that the marketeers said, okay, how can I actually make set some rules, make a kind of a decision engine to help the rep to figure out what's a smarter strategy for the individual customer, which I couldn't be able to do if I was just sitting in New York or London or Berlin or wherever. But if I can kind of tap in and empower my sales rep to do that analysis, discovery phase, I can actually deliver something that's much more relevant. So I just want to show you this one here. They say to the doctor, the thing is that we know that we've got around 300,000 people suffering from neuropathic pain. That has some major consequences when we talk uh, um, quality of life, cost of society, and so forth. I'm not going to go deep into this just to give you an idea, but it also means that now I actually get the right to say to the doctor, you want to see how many you probably got if we got 300,000 in Ireland, then you just need to put your finger on and then tell me how many patients you've got in your practice, because then that will give you an idea of how many people you probably got who suffer from this disease, whether they've been diagnosed or not. Then we'll say, well, the thing is that when we talk neuropathic pain, we also know that quite a few of these patients actually only got localized neuropathic pain. So they don't have pain all over. They might got it on the elbow, on the breast, or whatever. If you want to have a look, you can put your finger on, and then you can give your best guess of what you think. So I'm moving, it could now be the doctor moving that thing. I don't know. Maybe that could be as many as 42%. And so, well, you know what? According to our figures in Ireland, it's actually 64%. So, but now I know how many patients he's got, and I know to what extent he realized what the real problem is. Then I can talk about treatment options and say, well, the problem today is that we can only do a systemic treatment. When we do a systemic treatment, it means that we will affect everywhere on the body. It also means that when we do a systemic treatment, the only way that I can reduce the pain on the left-hand side down here is by increasing the dose. But what happens when I increase the dose on a systemic treatment, I obviously also increase the risk of adverse events. Depending on what kind of drug you're using, the adverse events will, of course, differ. So if you want to have a look, dear doctor, you just tell me what kind of drug are you using today. Well, if you're using gabapentin, these are the known side effects that you can expect. So now what I know actually is that I know how many patients he's got. I know to what extent he realized what the real problem is about localized pain. I now know what kind of drug he's using, and all I really want to know now is to what extent he would be ready to prescribe. So what I say now is that, well, the thing is that if you could do a local treatment, you will only affect that part of the body that hurts you. So the question is, if something like this was on the market, could you imagine that you would prescribe it to your current patients? Or would you be interested in just knowing more about it? I'm going to show you some data, example data of this one in a minute. But before I switch again from my iPad back to my computer, I just want to show you how this continued communication can work. So this is an example of this. Here we have, you can say, a presentation on a tablet where you can go out and explain to the customer about the product, mechanism of action, how is it working, and so forth. What does that mean about efficacy, quality of life, whatever, right? So this is just an example of, you can say, a tablet presentation. But what I want to show in this one is that once I've done this, I can then say to the customer, well, I can give you much more information that you can look at when you got the time. So tell me if you want to, I can make you a microsite. So tell me what is important for you. Well, you want to hear more about dosing, pain is complex, and efficacy, then let's highlight those three. You can, of course, look at the rest of it as well, but let me put in your name. Let me put in your email. So I'm just putting in my own email here. I can put in some comments here, and so forth. So, well, let me send you an email. So this is, I'm doing this together with the customer. This is your email address. Dear Dr. Morten, these are the things you think was important. So let me send it off to you. So now I've sent it. So if I go to my email now, you will see actually it came in here on the top line. So I'll get into that one and I'll say, okay, let me have a look at that one. And the doctor is now following that link. He's going to the website. You will see the numbers, and it starts with dosing because that's what he said was the most important thing. And now he can actually start working on that one. He can move to the different areas and so forth. But it's a tailor-made, it's a specific made presentation for that customer that has been co-created, you can say, together with the doctor. Okay, let me switch from an iPad here and back to my computer. As I said again, the way that we look at it is to say that I think what we've always done, what most companies have done by going digital, you can say, is great. That's the first step. That's the step of getting everything into a repository. That's about being able to deliver it in a digital format, to have it ready to use it in other channels and so forth. Now comes the interesting part, and that is saying, how do we move from what we've done so far, where we just kind of automated what we did, to use it for empowerment, to act. So that's what I say, that up till now we kind of closed the loop. Now we need to activate it. Now we need to take that information and move it to the next level, using it to deliver relevant information. And the thing is that once we start doing that, it actually kind of, it suddenly starts to accelerate. Because, as I'm saying here, if you're having a poor conversation, you're not going to capture any rich data. So that means that when we just put the digital or the paper into digital, move from paper to glass, the only thing we actually did, when I talk data, is that we kind of electrified it. We kind of put a GPS on a city bus, meaning that we would start tracking whether or not the city bus was following the route, if it was stopping at the right stops, if it followed the time schedule and so forth. So it told us a lot about the driver, but nothing about the passengers. And that's what I mean by saying that if we're only pushing, the only thing we can measure is how hard are we actually pushing. But the same second that you move from just going digital from automation to empowerment, you can say, we're suddenly moving in to have a rich conversation, like the conversation I just showed you, where we're actually engaging with the customer, saying, what are your worries? What are you doing today? How many patients do you have? What do you think about? Do you see a possibility in doing local treatment and so forth? Now it's suddenly rich data. And if we look at that data now, we can actually, suddenly, we can now see that where is the customer on the adoption ladder? What's his potential? To what extent has he realized the problem? What's his drug of choice? What is his readiness to prescribe? That I can start to aggregate, and then I can actually solve it again, and I can go in and say, okay, let's look at his potential and readiness to prescribe. So now I, on a much more detailed, nuanced level, can actually go in and make a segmentation, saying who's A's, who the B's, what should we do with them, and I can zoom in on the individual customer. So before I go into Dr. Olsen next time, I can actually see to what extent has he realized the problem, what drug is he using today, and out of that, what could the recommendation from marketing be, saying that when you meet a client that looks like this is how we recommend that you should attack that customer. Focus on tolerability, how to use, what's the problem, and so forth. But it's about, as I said, this is about empowerment. This is about moving it a lot closer to the individual customer, to make a much more specific, relevant strategy on what to deliver to that customer. Yeah, if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer it to the extent that I can.
Thank you very much, Morten, for a very insightful presentation. I have one here for you, Morten.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about the theory. Are there real life examples of best practice? Is that
Yeah.
is that understandable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the things that I showed you today, even though they were anonymized, these are real examples. We're doing this. We're doing this or we're doing that. A lot of our clients, a number of our clients, is moving this direction. So actually, so what I showed you, the technology is there and it's working, meaning that we can do exactly what I showed you. We can engage with the customer, get the information, address, and deliver. I think the important thing here is to say that what the technology, what we're trying to do with the technology is to say that we basically want to set, you can say, the marketeers, to set them free, you can say. That I think that as a marketeer, originally I'm a marketeer originally, so when I went into this, it's because that I really wanted to make a change. I wanted to change people's behavior with good, crisp, clear communication. In pharma, I think we've got so many constraints of what we're allowed to do, both seen from because the products are very complex. We've got some very hard regulations on it and so forth. Um, and what we're trying to do here is to say, well, if we can make a technology where we can actually expand those boundaries, uh, give the creativity back to the marketeers, to start working cross channels, to start delivering much more individually, but at the same time fulfill, you can say, and respect the constraints that we're having, meaning that we can't just have a bazillion apps out there. We have to have it controlled. It's got to be in a system. We've got to be able to have it medical approved and so forth. And I think that's of course one of the big, you can say, challenges within pharmaceutical, that we have this many constraints. But again, I would say the more constraints, the more creative we have to be. But just going back to your question, if this is theory, I don't think so. I think this is actually working. It's my view. We did our own, you can say, market survey on this. We believe that's only around 5% of the companies are kind of anywhere in this next step, where probably 80 to 85% have done the first step, you can say. But I don't consider this as a theory anymore. We can see every day that it's expanding, but we're moving there, and it is actively in use now.
Thank you very much, Morten. That was a very comprehensive answer, I believe. If there's any follow-up question for that one, just let me know and post the question again. I have another one for you, Morten. What steps do you take to move the electronic interaction towards the healthcare professional patient? So,
Yeah. Um, what we're doing is that, or what we believe, you can say, is that when I look at myself, and I think that's a good that's a good place to start. When I look at myself as a patient, I spend a lot of time whenever somebody in my family. I just had a daughter that was hospitalized not that long ago. She's fine now, but I spend a tremendous long time on the internet reading about the disease, the treatment options, and so forth. So just saying that as patients and as relatives, we take bigger and bigger, you can say, responsibility for ourselves, and we take more and more, we engage more and more with that. So as I was saying to the doctor at the hospital, in the old days, maybe she would spend a lot of time on educating the relatives and the patients. Today, they spend more time on de-educating, I call it, meaning that straighten it out for me, why they're not treating like that, and so forth. What I mean by that is just saying that, yeah, I believe that there's a big opportunity for the pharmaceutical industry to, first of all, to help the healthcare professionals, to provide tools, help, educational material, and so forth that they can use in front of the patients and in front of the relatives. What we do in our new software suite called the Rainmaker is that we're actually opening up that you can all the way out you can adjust and create content for the next level. What I mean by that is that imagine that you sit in Berlin or in London, New York, whatever, at a headquarter where you build your presentation on an overall level. Then you distribute that to the regions. They can adjust it to regional rules. Then you do you distribute it further down to the affiliates. They can adjust it to their culture, their language, and so forth. Then you actually have the rep who can adjust it again to his or her specific customer. Of course, always taken out of a medical approved and so forth compliant repository. And then you can actually give it to the doctor. Then you can actually say to the doctor, now you can go, like I showed you with the microsite, now you can put together what's important for you. And we could even have the doctor to put together a presentation or a website for the patient. So it's the doctor from a menu, again, an proven menu that could drag and drop and say, now I want to explain to you why you have to take your drug before 8 o'clock in the morning, why you have to take it together with food, why you have to whatever, and that could be with animation, that would be calculators, whatever. But what we're doing is saying that with the technology, we are opening up that you can move all the way out to the doctor and further on from the doctor to the relatives. I strongly think that for now and for a long period to come, there's enormous potential in helping out the healthcare professionals, giving them better tools, more tools on everything around treating the disease that you have that you have a drug that can help them out.
Thank you very much, Morten. There's a number of questions coming in here, so I'm just gonna um, give you another one. Here's one asking, saying that his experience that there's a low percentage of calls where reps are actually willing to use the eye detailer.
Yeah.
I think you may have some
That's a,
experience with that, but there's a
yeah, that's a great question.
yeah
But
the
not
question
the other question weren't great, but this one, okay. I think exactly what we've been doing is, and I think it's quite funny because what we've been doing is, as I said, we've just took the paper and made it digital. We put it into an iPad, and then we went out and say, here you are to the rep. Here's an iPad with this. Coming back to the analogy of the city bus driver, right? So now imagine you're a city bus driver. You've been driving the same route for 10 years, and now they come and say, now you know what? Here's a navigator. Now you can really find your way around. And so, you know what? I've been driving this route for 10 years. I know exactly my route. I'm very happy to get an iPad. That's great because my kid's going to love it and I can put on a lot of good games and use it for that. But I really don't need it to do my job. And I think that's what we've been doing. Now, what we should do is technology is not, in my view, this technology is not made to make life easier for the sales rep. It's to make them better. It's to expand what they were doing before. So what I'm saying is saying that now imagine you go to the bus driver and say, now you know what, tomorrow you're not going to drive a bus anymore. You're going to drive a taxi. So if people want to go to Trafalgar Square or Warren Street or Savvy Road or whatever, that's where you're going to take them. And he's going to say, well, I can't do that. You know, I'm not even from London. I'm just been driving the same route for 10 years. I'll never find my way around. So no, I know that. And that's exactly why I've got your navigator. So the analogy is here just to say that if the idea is, and I think that's why we got so many companies now that's kind of come to a dead end, right? That they've put everything onto iPad or tablets, and after 2 years now, the rep says, and so what? I can't even be bothered to use it. It's because they don't have to use it. To do their job, they don't have to use it. I didn't buy a computer. I didn't get spreadsheet, all that kind of things. If I could do it, just calculate it on a piece of paper. If I'm to do my job, I have to have that technology. Otherwise, I can't do my job anymore. And that's not what we've done with the sales rep. We're saying now, how can we make your life easier? And I think we should go the other way around. We should raise the bar and say, in the future, you're not just a rep. I actually want you to make micro marketing analyze. I want you to analyze each individual customer and then make an individual strategy. And say, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm not a marketer. No, that's why I'm giving you the tools.
Thank you very much, Morten.